Hey guys, it's Silvally HD here, and today we're looking at 25 glitches in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. In my last video, I covered glitches in the original Sun and Moon, and as you might have guessed, some of them did in fact carry over, but there's also a bunch of new ones to cover that you haven't seen before. Crashing the game just by picking a starter, completely breaking the battle rules with a Ditto, ignoring the shiny lock on a Pokemon, some blatant mistakes by the developers, and a whole lot more. So let's get into Gen 7 once again and look at glitches in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Here's an interesting one exclusive to Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon involving Dittos turning into humans. You do have to be in a specific spot in the story though, roughly about 10 hours into the game. You need to reach the second island, Akala, complete the 3 trials of water, fire, and grass, and take on the grand trial of beating Kahuna Olivia. Then, finally, a side quest of the Ditto 5 will be available in Koni City. You can start it by talking to the police officer just outside the city at the station, who's a Ditto. This starts this whole side quest of finding other humans that Ditto transformed into, and we get a weirdly big chunk of change for doing so. Well, first we have to take down this herb seller Ditto outside the photo club. Pay close attention to what happens after the battle though. You'll see the Ditto is gone and the real herb seller walks back into his position. This is important, as we'll be manipulating this for the next NPC, so the next one in the order is luckily the one we need for the glitch. It takes place in this restaurant across from the Pokemon Center. Inside, the Ditto is the chef standing in the back behind the counter, but we need to talk to him from a specific spot. Basically, we just need to be blocking the 2 tables behind us, as that's where the real chef will run through when we defeat the Ditto. There's some leeway with this, so just make sure you're standing relatively in the middle of the tables here. Talk to the Ditto and start the battle. Then, following the battle, the chef will try and run down this aisle and completely be blocked by you, resulting in this animation looping over and over again. In fact, it stays like this for 30 seconds until the game luckily corrects itself, presents the dialogue, and carries on like normal, placing the chef behind the counter again. If we go back and stand off to the side this time, like the game expects you to, you'll see that the chef basically just walks down to the spot you were standing in, gives us his little speech, and then teleports behind the counter anyway. So us standing in this spot completely blocks him, resulting in this funny looking scene. I'm just glad they had something in place to autocorrect NPCs getting stuck, or this would have completely soft locked the game, forcing players to reset from their last save. So it's a win-win. We get a cool glitch, and the game isn't broken because of it. Okay, this one kinda sucks, but luckily is only a glitch on version 1.0 of the game. Later updates correct this pretty annoying bug. And what is that, you ask? The game outright deleting moves off of your Pokemon. This can happen to any Pokemon if they don't have 4 moves already. Take a look at these Pokemon I have. They're low level and only have 1, 2, or 3 moves. So in theory, if I try and teach them a new move, it should go into the bottom available slot, right? Wrong. Visit any move tutor on any of the island's beaches. Here you can exchange BP for some nice moves. As you can see, I'm trying to teach my Rockruff Ironhead, which if you remember is level 1 and only knows Tackle. So again, you would think Ironhead would take the second move slot and leave Tackle alone, right? Wrong. For some reason, it replaced Tackle, and now I'm just left with Ironhead. So I guess what's happening is anytime you use one of these move tutors, if your Pokemon does not have 4 moves already, it mistakenly overwrites the first move with the new one. I'll show some more examples now, but this happens with all of the move tutors on all of the island's beaches, and is an absolute pain if you really just wanted to teach it a new move. If your Pokemon does already have 4 moves, it does the usual thing where it asks which move you'd like to delete, so we're all good there. It's only the lower level Mons that don't know 4 already. Like I said, this happens with all the move tutors, including the one at the battle tree, but does not glitch for the move reminders. These will always behave correctly and add the move to one of the empty slots like it's supposed to. Luckily, like I said, this was only a thing on version 1.0 of the game, so this was corrected pretty quickly, but if you're on the base version, just be careful of this or you could accidentally delete a move. While on the topic of move tutors, I wanted to quickly talk about an error with the pledge moves in the special tutor in the Hawali City Mall. Here you can teach different Pokemon the pledge moves of water, fire, and grass. This usually depends on the Pokemon in which they can learn. Rowlet, for example, can learn Grass Pledge. However, the Pokemon Silvally is a weird case. According to Bulbapedia, Silvally is programmed to be able to learn all 3 pledge moves. However, the move tutor only offers Grass Pledge, not Fire Pledge or Water Pledge. We can confirm this by talking to the tutor and trying to teach Silvally the pledge moves. She'll give you Grass Pledge automatically without a real choice, and if you talk to them and try again, it just says learned, with no option to change which pledge move you have or anything else. So regardless of the fact that they can technically learn Water or Fire Pledge, there's no legitimate way to do so. This was also a thing in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I even talked about it in that glitch video. So maybe you could still hack the Pokemon in and have them pass the legitimate test for online, but there is no official way to do so. Alright, this is a really cool one, and it's probably one of my favorites in this game. It involves Ash's Greninja and a Ditto. Getting Ash's Greninja is only possible if you play the Sun and Moon demo, complete it, and then transfer it into a full copy of the game. It has the special ability Battle Bond, and upon defeating a Pokemon will transform it into this exclusive form. This also changes the way the move Water Shuriken behaves, switching from hitting a target 2 to 5 times to locked into 3 times. However, Ditto causes some interesting problems if you transform into the Greninja while it's in this form. The Battle Bond ability won't be activated correctly, meaning you get the stat boost from it, but you still hit 2 to 5 times, which again causes some very weird effects. For starters, you'll see here that I hit the Ninetales 3 times, got it low, then when it goes to hit a 4th time, which would knock it out, it immediately cuts to them fainting, not even finishing the attack animation or the HP going down. I promise I did not alter or cut the footage in any way here. This is just what happens for some reason. Then, as more proof I guess, you'll see here that I only hit 2 times, which again shouldn't be possible due to the Ash Greninja ability of locking the move into 3 hits. But don't worry, it gets weirder. This time, my Ditto hitting 4 times did not knock out the Ninetales and immediately causes all the Pokemon besides the Dittoed Greninja to disappear. Like no other Pokemon are visible now. This was unfortunately corrected pretty quickly by my other Greninja using a move and knocking out their Pokemon, but was still incredibly odd looking. Again, this is not edited in any way, this is the raw footage without any cuts. My guess is the game was trying to pan back to that camera angle of Greninja attacking, but just like before, it got interrupted and the game never got to load the other Pokemon's models back in. I tried it again, this time not attacking with the real Greninja, and I got a slightly better result. They all turned invisible again, but the Ninetales came back when it used a move, leaving my other Greninja still invisible. So it seems like the other Pokemon will stay hidden until they go to use a move, triggering a new animation with them, which brings their model back. But hey, my other Greninja is still invisible and will stay that way until they attack again. So in theory, all the other Pokemon could remain invisible if they move before the Ditto Greninja triggers this glitch. But anyway, this is a real cool glitch overall, being able to mess with a very unique and exclusive Pokemon, Ash's Greninja. Due to the special state its ability creates, it seems like all the possible side effects were not fully tested, so this is the result. Since we're already talking about Ash's Pokemon, let's look at another cool glitch involving Partner Cap Pikachu. This Pikachu is sporting a partner cap similar to Ash's. This was a promotional Pokemon distributed via a QR code for the release of the movie Pokemon the Movie, I Choose You, back in 2017. However, the QR code still seems to work, meaning you can still redeem it and get this special Pikachu. All you gotta do is scan the QR code, then talk to this delivery man in Pikachu Valley. Now this is where the glitch comes into play. This Partner Cap Pikachu is supposed to be shiny locked, meaning it should never be possible to get a shiny version of this Pokemon. This is a common thing with legendaries and some mythical Pokemon, but also just for this little guy. However, the developers goofed and it is technically possible to receive a shiny version. You just have to save prior to talking to the NPC, obtain the Pikachu, then reset if it's not shiny. However, you should also know that the shiny version is not anything special, as there's no shiny model programmed into the game for this Pikachu. So the only visible way to know if it is shiny is having this red star on the summary screen, and it will also play the shiny sparkle animation when entering battle. So it's really up to you if you think this is worth it to spend the likely tens of maybe hundreds of hours it'll take resetting for a Pokemon that does not even look shiny. But due to the obscure method it takes to obtain this Pokemon to begin with, scanning a QR code and visiting this NPC, it also makes this Pikachu one of the rarest shinies in Pokemon history, as you cannot redeem this QR code multiple times per save, so you'd have to make a new save if you really wanted to own this Pikachu, and you had to reset for it. On top of the unique fact that it's supposed to be shiny locked, but due to the way the game determines a shiny, it's also a glitched shiny. So really cool overall, and a unique challenge for some of you out there. Maybe someone watching this video has already obtained one, so if so, let me know if you have. Okay, this might be one of the easiest battle glitches to do in the entire game, as there's very minimal setup required. All we need is a Pokemon that knows the move or can learn the move Ion Deluge. Deluge, I don't know. Which, there's about 10 Pokemon that can learn it. Anyway, nothing else really matters, so head into a battle with that Pokemon. From this point, there is no other setup needed. Simply use the move. Its description reads, the user disperses electricity charged particles, which changes normal type moves to electric type moves. Seems kinda sweet, right? Well, go ahead and use it, and you'll notice, oh, it failed. Alright, let's try again. When the move oh, dang, again. Okay, well, let's try using our Z power. Surely that ensures that it doesn't oh my god. Yes, if you you couldn't tell already, this magical move just always fails, no matter the scenario. A trainer battle, a wild Pokemon battle, and anything in between. This move will never work. For those of you saying that this move has worked before for you, you must have updated the game as it's only an error on version 1.0. It's kind of concerning that the devs made this big of an error when creating this new move, and even looking at the big picture, it is not a new move as it was introduced in X and Y, but wasn't in Gen 7 until Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So I mean, yeah, there's a chance the playtesters just didn't try using this move, or assumed it failed for some other unknown reason, but to my knowledge, there is no way to get this move to work unless you update the game. Even using the Z power says it would raise its special attack, and I would even take just the stat boost at this point, but nope, fails every single time. So I guess not really a glitch, but it's still a pretty crazy mistake. Alright, on the topic of programming errors, I'll be honest, this is one of the more boring ones from my Sun and Moon video, but I still wanted to talk about it, as it's technically a glitch in this game too. We have access to Thundurus, Landorus, and Tornadus, also known as... Alright, listen, yes, their official name is the Forces of Nature, but I myself, along with many other friends, YouTubers, and internet posts sometimes refer to them as legendary genies. Come on, they got the whole arms crossed thing, floating on clouds. I mean, Thundurus looks pretty damn similar to the genie from Aladdin. But anyway, we are not here to argue. But speaking of Thundurus, there's a pretty interesting quirk with the TM Smart Strike. Obviously, some TMs can be learned by certain Pokemon. However, even though these three genies have two forms, the default Incarnate and their Therian versions, these don't change the typings of them or anything, just shifts their stats around a little. But anyway, it would make sense that Thundurus can't learn some TMs that Landorus could, for example. However, Smart Strike is an enigma, as Incarnate Thundurus can learn it, but not the Therian form. It just says it's incompatible. So this is just a blatant error by the devs, as you can just teach Incarnate Thundurus Smart Strike and then use the Reveal Glass to change it to Therian, giving it a technically illegal move. The only real argument you can make as to why this is the case is that Smart Strike is a physical attacking move, and Incarnate Thundurus is a stronger physical attacker, while Therian is special attacking. But 1, Incarnate still has higher special attack than physical, Therian's is just higher, and 2, this is the only TM in the entire game that this happens with. I'm pretty confident I went through every single one. If other TMs did this for the other genies, okay, fair enough. It still doesn't make sense since you can just use the Reveal Glass, making it pointless anyway, but Smart Strike is the only one. Just a very weird mistake overall, and yes, I still will be calling them the legendary genies. Staying with the programming errors once more, this is one of those glitches that carried over from Sun and Moon as well, as it takes place during a Totem Pokemon fight. During the first trial on Route 2, you'll take on your first trial and Totem Pokemon battle. Depending on whether you're playing Ultra Sun or Ultra Moon, you will fight a Gumshoos or an Alolan Raticate. While visually, they are completely different Pokemon, the cutscene of them appearing will always play Gumshoos cry, regardless of the game you are on. Have a listen. While it may not be obvious right away, I'm going to play what both Gumshoos and Alolan Raticate normally sound like. So yeah, not really a glitch and just more of a mistake by the devs. Since this is a thing in both Sun and Moon and the Ultras, my long shot conspiracy is that they started development by creating Pokemon Sun, built out all the encounters and everything, then they switched to making Moon, replacing all the spawns, cutscenes, and everything else. And I guess this cutscene of the first Totem Pokemon just got mistakenly glossed over. Not really a huge deal regardless, but I still thought it was interesting. You could make the argument that they knew about this and still just kept it in the Ultra versions, but this is the only time in any of the cutscenes that a Pokemon will play a different cry than their own. So this might be one of the worst glitches these games have to offer, as it can really screw over players. And when does this take place, you ask? Not even 10 minutes into the game, when you're picking your starter Pokemon. Yes, that's right, picking your starter. This glitch can occur, and it's pretty annoying because the game has a chance to just crash completely. So the only setup this glitch involves is picking Litten as your starter. That's it. For some reason, there's a fairly decent chance your game will be stuck on a black screen following the cutscene of you selecting Litten and holding them up in your arms. Now I will say, I couldn't get this crash myself, maybe it's because I'm playing on an emulator, but I'll simulate on screen what you would see. Nothing. The cutscene fades and just nothing happens after that. The music will still play in the background, but that is it. As for the causes of this, I have no idea. There's there doesn't seem to be a consistent way to trigger it. I found a YouTube video showing off the crash, and in the comments, there are even more people saying that they experienced this on the game's launch. Some of them saying it happened multiple times when picking Litten. Interestingly, one person reported that if they pick a male trainer, there was no problem picking the flaming cat, but as soon as they switch to a female trainer, boom, the game crashes. I even tried myself, picking the same exact female character shown in the video, but it still didn't happen for me. So I'm not exactly sure how often or what your chances are that it will crash, but there are 72 comments on this one video alone, and just about all of them are saying how it happened to them too. So it seems kinda common. Maybe it's just the game's way of punishing you for picking Litten instead of Rollout. Luckily, this was only a glitch on version 1.0 of the game, but it's honestly crazy that a game crash occurs this often when picking your starter 10 minutes into the game. On top of that, since it is the start of the game, there's a good chance that some players still haven't saved the game for the first time. So imagine you're all excited to sit down with a brand new Pokemon game, you set your nickname, watch all the intro cutscenes, finally to pick your starter, and you're just stuck, forced to close and restart the game from the beginning again, just for it to maybe happen again back to back. Really sets the tone for some players' first experience of Gen 7. Again, I have no clue what the percent chance of this happening is. I tried a few times myself and it never happened, but I'm sure one of you out there watching this has had this happen to them. If it did, please let me know in the comments, as I'm very curious as to how often it really occurred. Okay, it's time for a fan favorite from the OG Sun and Moon video, turning a Giratina into a Rotom. For those unfamiliar, with a very odd setup, it's possible to give Giratina Rotom's Cry. Don't believe me? So the setup is quite easy, and if you only want to do the Cry swap part, you only need Giratina's signature Grisius Orb, and then pink or purple Nectar. But before we show that one, I want to cover some less interesting side effects if you use the other Nectars. So start off by having Giratina holding the Grisius Orb so it's in its origin form, then swapping the item for red Nectar. It's important when doing these that you swap the held items. You can't just remove one and then give them a different item. Anyway, for the red Nectar, it doesn't actually do anything special, it just turns it back to its default altered form. But I wanted to show that as a base because all the other Nectars do something. So swap the item back to the Grisius Orb and this time switch it with yellow Nectar. You'd think nothing special happened as the transformation starts to play out, but if you notice, it stays in its origin form, which is odd on its own as you now have an origin form Giratina without holding the normally required Grisius Orb. So we're getting somewhere with that Nectar, but it's time for the main event. Start again by holding the Grisius Orb and swapping it for pink or purple Nectar. Doesn't matter. The transformation animation will play, returning it to its altered form, but bear with me and back out to check its summary. Yes, that's right. For some reason, this changes Giratina's Cry to Rotom's. You can even compare the two if you would like. To my knowledge, Giratina will stay like this until you take the Nectar back. I tried resetting my game, putting them in the PC, and taking them into battle. Nothing stopped it from imitating Rotom. So yeah, definitely one of the more interesting glitches this game has to offer. It's not often you can alter a Pokemon's Cry like this. As a final send-off, I did something I did not try in the regular Sun and Moon video. I tried swapping to the pink Nectar while it was in its glitched origin form while holding the yellow Nectar, and sure enough, it gave me Rotom's Cry as well. You still go back to the altered form, so there's no real difference which route you take to get here. They both give you the Cry. One thing I thought was interesting, the only place you can still hear Giratina's normal cry when in this glitched state is going into Pokemon Refresh. Have a listen. So yeah, in battles, in summaries, everywhere else we'll play Rotom's Cry when you do the swap, just not in Pokemon Refresh. So as a whole, this glitch is incredibly weird, but I love it. These colored Nectars are usually only used to change the form of Oricorio, so at least there's some semblance with changing Giratina, but it's important to note you have to use the Nectars on the Pokemon to change their form, not make them hold them. So it just makes it even more confusing. But yeah, a Giratina Rotom. I wonder if other people would hear this if you got into an online battle, but again, I'm not on a real 3DS, so I don't have that capability, so I'm leaving that discovery for one of you. While that Pokemon Refresh thing, still playing Giratina's default cry, is fresh in y'all's minds, I wanted to cover another glitch that carried over from Sun and Moon. You already kinda got the gist of it from that last one, but just to clarify, this default cry glitch will happen with any other Pokemon that have form-specific cries when bringing them into Pokemon Refresh. So like last time, I'm going to showcase Oricorio. They have 4 forms, the default Bele, Pom-Pom, Pow, and Sensu. They each have their own unique cry depending on the form, so have a listen on the summary screen. Well, with this in the back of our heads, head into Pokemon Refresh from your menus. When you enter, the Pokemon will play a cry pretty much right away, and when you swap them around. Have a listen to their cries as I throw each of them out. You would expect to hear unique cries, but... Yeah, so regardless of the form, it will always play the original Bele's cry. This only happens once when it's first thrown out and will correct itself with any other cry after petting them or feeding them a treat. And like I said, this will happen with any other Pokemon that have form-specific cries. Kinda like the Giratina that turned into a Rotom. Even they played their default cry when first thrown out in Pokemon Refresh. Hey, remember that glitch in the regular Sun and Moon games where you could stand behind some crates in the Aether Paradise and have your character's outlines removed? For some reason, that is not a thing in this game, despite being the same dang building as the originals. Well, fear not, this insanely minuscule glitch is actually still a thing in Ultra Sun and Moon. And a big thanks to this comment from Brownyan for bringing this to my attention. Turns out there's another spot that removes the character's outlines when standing behind it. This one's in Professor Kukui's lab, so run down Route 1 and head inside. Towards the back is this aquarium. Well, pay close attention to those thick outlines around my character because they are now gone. Whoa. Yeah, so I guess the game removes the outlines here since you're standing behind glass and water, which is a little different than the Aether crates. As for that one, the game assumed that we were standing behind an object, so it stopped tracing them. But this one, the devs had to know you were visible through the tank, so I don't really know why it happens here. Maybe the outlines would bug out since you're looking at the character through something? I don't really know. Also, why does my boy Love Disc look like a 32 by 32 pixel PNG, while Corsola has a fully rendered 3D model? They did my boy dirty. But yeah, I'm glad this glitch is back, as I think the character model looks so much better without the outlines, at least when playing with jacked up graphics on a PC. I had some people comment that the outline fits the game when playing on a small 3DS screen, and I do see your point with that, but in my case, I like it a lot better when it's all smooth and clean looking. Don't take that out of context. This is one of my favorites that got carried over from Sun and Moon, and is one that just about everyone who's ever played these games has experienced, even if they didn't notice. To quote my Pokemon Gen 3 video, and twice in my original— alright, this joke is already getting kinda old. Pokemon evolve. Yeah, get over it. But when a Pokemon evolves, you get taken to this fancy cutscene. Ooh. Well, if you know a Pokemon is about to evolve, and you know this cutscene is coming up, pay special attention to the top left corner of the main screen. It may be tough to notice without slowing down the footage, but as the black is fading out, you can actually catch a glimpse at the next stage of the evolution. So here, I'm evolving my Dartrix, but you can just see Decidueye for a frame or two hanging out in the corner. The game is likely loading the model so it can instantly appear towards the end of the cutscene, but they did it a tad too late as we can see it pretty easily. It happens every single time with any Pokemon in any evolution method, whether it be leveling up, using an item, or after a trade. While it is tough to see if you're not paying attention, it's one of my favorites as the model is often cut off and in a weird position. So next time you go to evolve a Pokemon, take a closer look at the top left corner. Okay, so I quickly wanted to cover another one from Sun and Moon, and this one caused some back and forth in the comments on whether or not it's actually a glitch. So let me know what you think. But anyway, we need to go to Poni Island and head to the vast Poni Canyon trial site, where you fight Totem Komodo. Towards the start, you'll enter this cave where there's no music playing, just gusts of wind blowing through and other cavey ambient noises. Well, while we're in here, open your menu and go into any of the options, like your party or bag. Doesn't really matter. As you do, you might notice that all the background noise completely disappears, leaving us with only the menu UI sounds to listen to as we navigate around. Regardless of whether this is really a glitch or not, you gotta admit it's pretty eerie to have no other sounds playing. Now technically this isn't really a glitch, as the wind sounds are just a different audio track than the normal music and will always mute when in the menus. This isn't the best example as they're tough to hear, but when you're on a beach, there's the normal music playing but also the sounds of waves crashing into the shore. You can hear the sounds disappear when you go into a menu. But I still think it being completely quiet is pretty odd, as it's pretty much the only place in the entire game to my knowledge where there's no other music or sounds playing. And I still think there needs to be something playing here. even if it is just those same sounds on the actual audio track. But I will also say again, this could be helpful for fellow content creators out there, as we can capture sounds of Pokemon cries without having to do anything special. Just view their summary, or just grabbing the UI sounds. As one final send-off to this, if you use Charizard to fly to a new location, the cutscene will also be muted besides the sounds of the cutscene itself. It's time to bring back a fan favorite segment from the original Sun and Moon glitch video. Say it with me now. Weird graphical glitches you can do by standing in a specific spot in a specific location. Woohoo. Okay, this one's just about on par with the one we covered in those games. This time we're heading to Resolution Cave on Poni Island. This is normally where Zygarde spawns in these games, but it doesn't really matter if you caught them already or not. We care about something more important. The ramp that brings you up to their platform. So head inside the cave and down to the room where there should be this ramp towards the back. While riding a Pokemon, pay close attention to the shadow underneath, the dark oval on the ground. As you go up the ramp, it seems to glitch out a good bit, clipping inside the ramp itself. If you turn around and walk down, it's totally fine. Same with moving side to side. It's only when you're riding up the ramp that it does clip through. Pretty crazy, right? Well, don't worry, it will do this with all the ride Pokemon you can use on land, with Machamps being the least affected and almost looks normal. And do not worry, everyone, this actually isn't the only place we can trigger this glitch. I just so happened to be climbing up Mount Lanakila when I noticed it does it in 2 places near the last Pokemon Center, with one even going side to side, not just up and down. This back ramp looks basically identical to the Zygarde one as well, which is interesting, right? But if we check out the side one, we can see the culprit for this whole glitch. It seems as though the front legs of the ride Pokemon clip through the ramp, which also causes the shadow attached to it to clip under it as well. Isn't that neat? Does this actually do anything useful for us? No. Does it allow us to clip through the floor like the shadow does by hopping off the ride Pokemon in a specific spot? Nope. Is this an absolutely pointless glitch that I found on a single forum comment about and decided it was worth to put in a video? Yup. Are we moving on to a more interesting glitch? Yeah, I think so. Hey you. Yeah, you. Do you always want to land one-hit KO moves? Well, listen closely, because it only requires 2 turns of setup. All you need is a poison Pokemon that can learn Toxic and a one-hit KO move, such as Nidoking with Horn Drill, and another Pokemon with Instruct, which only Oranguru can learn, so you really don't have a choice. But Oranguru also has to go before Nidoking, so we need them to learn Trick Room as well to reverse the turn order. So now, heading into a double battle, we only need 2 turns to make this work. First turn, we use Toxic with Nidoking and Trick Room with Oranguru. We do this to not only make Oranguru go first next turn like I said earlier, but also using Toxic here means it will be the move that triggers by Instruct, as it uses whatever the Pokemon did last turn. So as long as you're both still alive, we can start turn 2. This time, pick Horn Drill, or whatever one-hit KO move you have, and then use Instruct on that Pokemon. Real quick, I would like to point out that this Silvally used Confuse Ray on both of my Pokemon, so I had to break through Confusion 4 times to get this to work. And in Gen 7, it's a 33% chance that you hit yourself, so I got kinda lucky here. Anyway, as the turn plays out, you will be instructed to use Toxic first, eventually followed by the move you selected, which was your one-hit KO move. Thanks to this specific setup, this move will always connect. The target can be dug underground, in the middle of Fly, heck, it can be Rotom Giratina using Shadow Force. This one will always connect, knocking them out every single time. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But why does it work? Well, it's all thanks to Toxic. On paper, it's a 90 accuracy move, however, if the user is a poison type, the move will always connect, even when in Fly, Dig, or Shadow Force. You might see where this is going, but the never miss flag stays on or with that Pokemon for the rest of the turn. So in turn 2, when Nidoking gets to use 2 moves thanks to Instruct, the flag also applies to the second move, Horn Drill, a one-hit KO move that normally only has a 30% chance to connect. Also, by the way, thanks to some comments on my last video, it's not necessarily always 30%. It is 30 plus the level difference between the Pokemon using it and getting attacked. But in my case, I'm in the battle tree, locked to level 50 Pokemon, so there is a 30% chance if used normally. So I mean, it's a pretty practical way to knock out a Pokemon as it only takes 2 turns, you can set up Trick Room, and poison the other Pokemon not getting taken out. Honestly, really good value if you have some slow Pokemon in the back of your team. Also, one final note, that one-hit KO move doesn't technically need to be one. It can literally be any other move, as it will always land too. So maybe there is a scenario where hitting both Mons could be the better outcome, but I think fully knocking out anyone guaranteed is the better option most of the time. While on the topic of Trick Room, here's another rule-defying glitch, making a Pokemon too fast for Trick Room, allowing them to be so fast they still go first. This can be done with a super fast Pokemon that stats can reach over 1,809 speed. For this, I'm once again going to be using a speed form Deoxys with Timid Nature and perfect EVs and IVs, giving me a raw base stat of 504. But if we use the move Agility 3 times, raising it to +6, essentially giving us ×4 our speed, this Deoxys can reach 2016. What a good year that was. So yeah, in battle, there's just about nothing else that could outspeed this thing now, unless they also had this exact Deoxys too. So while Trick Room is activated, which says this specific text, slower Pokemon get to move first for 5 turns. Deoxys should go dead last in almost every scenario. But since we're talking about it in a video, clearly it doesn't, and you'll see this Deoxys still uses Psychic first before any other Pokemon can go, which is pretty cool. This will happen on every turn until Trick Room ends, where even still you are obviously the fastest Pokemon, so basically once you break that 1809 speed barrier, you will always move first. Now I did have some people in the comments on my last video explain why this happens. Basically there's a math formula applied to all the Pokemon speeds when Trick Room is activated, but if you're 1809 and above, the speed overflows, essentially breaking the formula and still allows us to go first anyway. So no matter which way you look at it, this Pokemon is too fast for Trick Room. This is definitely one of the easiest glitches to pull off in this game, but is also one of the most anticlimactic. All you have to do for this is either give your Pokemon a nickname or go into your PC and rename one of the boxes. All that matters is that we get to this text entry screen with the keyboard and everything. As you may or may not know, as I didn't until just now, if you press the X button, the last entered character will be converted from uppercase to lowercase and vice versa. Pretty simple, right? Well, this works with all 26 letters in the alphabet, but doesn't work for the special character E acute, which is the E with the acute accent above it. It's a letter in the Latin alphabet used in special cases, such as in the Pokemon name. Well, as you might be able to tell by the footage, clicking X does not convert the character from upper to lower, no matter what you do. Despite the fact that there is a matching upper and lowercase E acute, it just doesn't work for some reason, so you have to manually switch between upper and lowercase anytime you want to enter one of these characters. Like I said, nothing crazy by any means, but still interesting they didn't allow this conversion. Alright, this is one of my favorite battle glitches, as you have the ability to give a lot of moves ×16 base power, and even ×32 base power. How is this possible? With Rollout. We also need a Mimikyu on the field, so I just made it my doubles partner, but again, it can be another trainer's. Anyway, once in the battle, we need to use Rollout on the Mimikyu. As you may know, Rollout is a rock-type move that lasts 5 turns, but its damage snowballs pretty quickly. So the first turn, it would be ×1, then second, ×2, ×4, ×8, and then ×16 for the final 5th turn. Makes sense, right? Well, since we attack the Mimikyu to lock us in it, it creates a glitched state. You see, Mimikyu's signature ability is Disguise, meaning it just tanks the first hit regardless of how much damage it was supposed to do, and topples over, finally making it vulnerable. Well, this actually desynced the turn damage multiplier, meaning the turn counter got incremented to 2, but the damage stayed at ×1. So this means we are forced to use Rollout for 4 more turns, which does eventually knock out the Mimikyu, but it happened on turn 5, meaning Rollout is counted as over, but the damage multiplier only applied to ×8, meaning we are not locked into Rollout and the game will automatically apply that final ×16 to whatever move we use next. To demonstrate this time, we have a level 100 Kyogre with 310 HP. I select Tackle with a Bidoof, which shouldn't do anything to this legendary Pokemon, but it still knocks it all the way down to 12, meaning a single tackle with a Bidoof did 298 damage. And if you really want to know, I tried using a normal tackle without the Rollout glitch and it only did 19. So that checks out damage wise. If ×16 is not enough for some reason, like with a normal Rollout, if you use Defense Curl prior, that final attack will be ×32 its base power, which is absolutely nuts and would do about 600 damage to this Kyogre. Also, in case you were curious, if I were to set up this glitch and still use Rollout on the glitch turn, it would apply the multiplier but not lock us in. As you can see here, I'm still able to attack the next turn. So pretty sweet overall, and all you need is a Pokemon with Rollout and a Mimikyu. You also don't even have to keep the Mimikyu alive the whole time during the 5 turns. You just have to be the one that breaks its disguise and activate the ability. That's the main component. So it is pretty tough to keep a Pokemon alive for 6 total turns to get this glitch off, but if you do, you can basically one-shot any Pokemon you'd like, regardless of type differences. Continuing on with some of my favorite battle glitches that carried over, how about turning a Pokemon invisible again? The setup for this is a little interesting. We need a Pokemon that knows Skydrop, that can also knock itself out after using it. So the simplest way I could think of was giving them a Life Orb and then using another Pokemon to False Swipe it down to 1 HP before using it. But the final and most important step is that you go into your settings and turn battle effects off. So as much as I do love animations, the glitch won't activate without this. So in a doubles battle, I did what I said and False Swiped my Life Orb holding Skydrop user as they took a Machop to the sky. Then you just have to survive that turn and have the move play out. You'll notice that neither Pokemon really comes back into view as their HP's drain, but then the Aerodactyl does come back to play the fainting animation. But where's the Machop? I guess since Skydrop knocked me out, the other Pokemon never got a chance to reappear, leaving us with this invisible opponent. I just let it sit here for a minute while the camera panned around and got some good shots of the trainer standing there with nothing in front of them. They will stay completely invisible during attacks and getting attacked. Like our poor Aerodactyl, they will only be visible once again once you knock them out. So is this useful? Not really, since we had to knock out our own Pokemon to do it, but I still think it's funny to create this effect. Alright, it's time for a battle glitch we didn't cover in the original Sun and Moon. It involves the move Wide Guard and was only a glitch in version 1.0 of the game. 1.1 corrected this bug, so just be aware of that. Anyway, Wide Guard is a move used in doubles battles that's supposed to protect both Pokemon from wide range moves, aka moves that hit multiple Pokemon such as Surf. But it has an unintended side effect in version 1.0. But first, we have to talk about Protect. If a Pokemon that uses Protect gets hit with a Z move, it doesn't fully block it, and still does 25% of the damage it was supposed to do. Well, for some reason, Wide Guard also has this effect when getting attacked. It will reduce the power of Z moves down to 25% as well. Take this footage for example. I use Bloom Doom on my Solgaleo without any protection and it does roughly 100 damage. But if I have Solgaleo use Protect and then get hit with Bloom Doom, it does about 25 damage. Now I used Wide Guard first, then got hit with Bloom Doom. You'll see that it also does about 25 damage, and even comes up with the same message, so Galio couldn't fully protect itself and got hurt. So yeah, an attacking move that Wide Guard shouldn't block anyway since it only targets one Pokemon, also for some reason reduces Z moves. Like I said, this was fixed in newer updates, so it's very interesting that it even happened in the first place. But I guess when online battles were first a thing, and the game was on 1.0 for everybody, this could have been a semi-useful glitch, as using Wide Guard would not only protect you from multi-target attacks, but also in the event that your opponent used a Z move. Alright, this is a pretty tame one, but I thought I should still include it anyway. So Own Tempo is an ability that prevents Pokemon from getting confused. However, Baton Pass is a move that swaps the current Pokemon out for another, while passing along conditions such as confusion. So in a battle, I got my own Pokemon confused and then Baton Pass to a Pokemon with Own Tempo. You would expect the ability tag to come on screen right away, but it just doesn't. I'm allowed to select a move and play out the turn. Only when it gets to my turn to move does the Own Tempo ability finally kick in just before using it. So I mean, really nothing crazy, you still can't force a Pokemon to have confusion, it just delays the ability kicking in. I still thought it was interesting on the battle status screen. You can see my Licky Licky says it has confusion, even though the ability right above it says it's supposed to prevent it. But still doesn't actually affect the battle in any way, so I mean it's really not worth trying out yourselves. On the topic of things activating late, this was something I wanted to show off anyway, and got to trigger while trying my last glitch. My Smeargle is holding a Citrus Berry, which is supposed to activate once I go below half health, and is supposed to heal me a little bit. However, this, along with other similar healing items, will only kick in if another Pokemon attacks you and knocks you below half health. If you're confused and hurt yourself, dropping below half HP will not trigger the berry. In fact, the berry will never trigger if you continue to hurt yourself. This is a pretty annoying glitch and could be the difference why you lose a battle, as those berries can allow you to survive an extra turn or two. But if it never gets triggered due to you hitting yourself, you're basically out of luck. This is a glitch in Gens 5, 6, and 7, so it's likely happened to some of you at some point, and is one of the more harmful battle glitches these games have to offer. This one may not even be a glitch, but it's still kind of annoying for the player. So as you can see here, I have a level 16 Rowlet and a level 6 Rockruff. If Rowlet levels up, they should evolve, as they normally do at level 17, and the Rockruff should learn Bite if they level up. Well, head into your festival plaza and locate a rare kitchen if you have one. Here, you can buy meals that level up a Pokemon that eat them by 1. However, if we feed the Rowlet, elevating it to level 17, nothing happens. It doesn't evolve or do anything. Same for the Rockruff, it does not try to learn Bite. So it seems as though leveling up with the rare kitchen completely ignores any bonuses that are supposed to happen, such as evolutions and learning moves. My guess is that because we're in the festival plaza and the game isn't programmed to handle these events in this area, or it has something to do with the online/local communications, if you were to get taken to an evolution cutscene, it would break the communications or something. That's just my guess though, and regardless is a pretty annoying glitch if it is one. You can go to the move reminder to still learn the move that it skipped over, but this also costs us a heart scale. So yeah, I would just recommend staying away from rare kitchens when leveling up Pokemon, unless you know it won't cause it to ignore anything, or you just don't care. This was another battle glitch that carried over from Sun and Moon and is purely a visual thing. So normally, if you use Rain Dance, dark clouds appear over top and it begins to rain. Pretty normal, right? Well, keep that in the back of your mind while we use electric terrain first to make the field this yellow staticky mess, then use Rain Dance a few turns later. So now both are up, with electric terrain wearing off first. Once this happens, the rain effects will stay, but you might notice that the gray clouds are nowhere to be seen. So it looks like a clear night sky, but there's still rain without the clouds. Like I said, this is purely a visual glitch where the game doesn't expect two terrain altering effects to be active at once and one goes away before the other. And yes, it still does count as the rain being active, just without the clouds in the sky. Interestingly, and something I did not test in Sun and Moon, if you reverse the order so Rain Dance is used first, then electric terrain the turn after, when the rain clears, you will still see the yellow electric terrain effects, but after that clears, the dark clouds from the rain will stay behind. So even with all the terrain effects ending, the dark clouds are now stuck on the screen due to the glitch. Just to confirm, if we only used Rain Dance once the rain turns end, the clouds are supposed to clear with it, leaving us with just the regular sky. So having multiple terrain effects active with one of them fading before the other causes some interesting visual glitches, regardless of the order you do them in. So there were a whopping 25 glitches in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I know some of these were overlaps from the OG Sun and Moon video I just did, but 1, some of you may not have watched that video, and 2, I felt like I couldn't just leave them out, as they are glitches that exist in both games. Plus, most of the ones that carried over are either pretty interesting or useful. So, whatever. For those who don't know, I'm on a journey to cover glitches in every mainline Pokemon game from Red and Blue all the way up to Scarlet and Violet. I'd say we're about 2/3 of the way through, with mainly the older games left. With this video done, I've covered all the 3DS and Switch titles, along with all of Gen 3 and some of Gen 5. I did make videos on Diamond and Pearl as well as Red and Blue, but those were both 7+ years ago at this point, so I want to do them better. So if you want to come along for the ride, definitely stick around and subscribe. But for now, I'm gonna get up out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, see ya!